President of BLA, distinguished representative from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I met her during lunch, leaders of BLA board, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. I hope you had a very sumptuous lunch. Now, as mentioned by Paul earlier and the MC, I'll be giving a perspective in the global arena. And basically, later on, I think we have the ASEAN and the national one. So it is, first of all, my great pleasure to be invited here at Ho Chi Minh City for the first ASEAN Vietnam Logistics Forum edition. And it is particularly meaningful that we meet to discuss digital trade and electronic bills of lading. For 100 years, international trade has depended on documents, paper-based. Now, documents actually tells us what was sold, what was shipped, who owns the cargo, the legal title, whether payment should be released, and sometimes whether cargo may cross the border. Today, we have artificial intelligence, or AI, blockchain, cloud platforms, APIs, digital identities, smart port. Yet, in many parts of the global trade, we still print document, sign it, stamp it, put it in an envelope, and then send it across the world. We've seen this every day. So the real question is not, can we digitize trade? Of course we can. The more important question is, can we trust digital trade? Of course, this is something we need to tackle. Because without trust, digitalization is simply faster uncertainty. And this afternoon, I want to share with you FIATA's perspective on what must come next. Now, we often say logistics as a paper problem. I would actually challenge that. Paper is not fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is fragmented trust. One shipment, the shipper has information, the forwarder has information, the carrier, the other stakeholders like the customs, port, bank, consignee, all have information. But very often, they are looking at different systems, different versions, and sometimes different truths. The cargo has not changed, but information surrounding the cargo is repeatedly recreated. If we reproduce an inefficient paper process on a computer screen, we have not transformed trade. We have only digitized inefficiency. Therefore, the problem is not paper. The problem is fragmented trust. Now, there are three levels of trust. From FIATA perspective, trusted digital trade requires three levels of trust. First, the question is, can I trust the identity? Who issued the document? Is the company legitimate? Is the counterparty verified? Second, can I trust the data? Has the information changed? Can its integrity be verified? And third, can I trust the transfer? Who controls the document now? Has control been legally transferred? Can the same record be fraudulently presented twice? Okay, these are the three. And this matters because a negotiable bills of lading is not simply shipping information. It may evidence carriage. It acknowledges the receipt of goods, and where negotiable, it may represent rights relating to the goods. That is why digitalizing a bill of lading is fundamentally different from scanning an invoice. It requires identity, integrity, and control. These are the foundations of trusted digital trade. Now, from paper trust to digital trust. For generations, trade developed mechanisms to create trust in paper. We recognize signatures, originals, possessions, endorsements, fiscal transfer. Now, digital trade must achieve the same commercial and legal functions through different mechanisms. Signatures becomes verified identity. Originals becomes digital integrity. Possessions become exclusive control. Endorsements become digital transfers. And the fiscal chain becomes a trusted digital trade. Digital trade does not eliminate trust mechanism. It makes them even more important. Technology then cannot say, trust me because I'm digital. The technology must demonstrate integrity. The law must recognize the transaction. And that's why Paul mentioned earlier on the MLETR, the Model Law for Electronic Transferable Records, promulgated by the United Nations Conference for International Trade and Law, which is UNCITRAL in short, since November 2025 for ratifications by governments. And industry must understand this process. Trust must be designed into ecosystem. It cannot be added as an afterthought. Now the EFBL, or Electronic FIATA Bills of Lading. Now this philosophy is central to the FIATA's work on electronic FIATA Bills of Lading. The EFBL has served our industry for decades on paper base. That is about over 50, 60 years. But global trade now requires these trusted documents to operate in the digital environment. The EFBL today is not simply a digital image of a paper document. It is about security, it is about verification, interoperability, multimodal connectivity. And FIATA does not believe global trade should be locked into one technology platform. A forwarder, for example, a forwarder in Vietnam may use one system. Then a forwarder in Singapore may be another. Another forwarder or customers in Europe, a different one. Now a bank, its own digital environment may also exist. The answer cannot be everybody must use the same software. No, this is not realistic. The answer is interoperability. Technology should adapt to the operational realities of trade. Trade should not be forced to reorganize itself around one technology service provider. Now we talk about interoperability. One of the greatest risks in digital trade is the creation of digital islands. Every company develops a platform. Every port develops a platform. Every provider develops another platform. And every platform says, join my ecosystem. If we are not careful, we will replace paper fragmentation with digital fragmentation. We will have faster systems that cannot communicate with each other. That is why interoperability matters the most. A trusted ecosystem must allow information and documents to move securely between systems. A document should not lose its trust characteristics simply because it moves from one technology environment to another. In my view, the future will not be won by biggest closed platform. The future will be built through trusted connectivity between platforms. Global standards, common data, legal recognition, collaboration. These are the ingredients. No carrier can visualize global trade alone. No technology company can do it alone. No freight forwarder can do it alone. And not even FIATA can do it alone. Digital trade is an ecosystem challenge. It requires an ecosystem solution. Now look at the legal bridge. Technology alone is certainly not enough. A digital document must be technically secure. But will a court of law recognize it? Will a bank accept it? Will it be recognized across borders? These are fundamental questions. This is why international legal framework matters. UNCITRAL Model Law for Electronic Transfer Records provide an important legal foundation. And we are now entering another important stage with the United Nations Convention on Negotiable Cargo Document, or in short, NCD. I think Paul mentioned briefly on this one. Now, historically, negotiability has been strongly associated with maritime bills of lading. But global supply chains today are highly multimodal. Trucking, railroad, sea, another truck, several countries. Now the cargo moves through one supply chain. Yet the legal and documentary environment may remain fragmented by transport mode. We can see this from the Belt Road Initiative, or formerly called One Belt, One Road in China, from the eastern sea coast of China all the way to Central Asia, Russian Federation, Mongolia, and also to Eastern Europe, through continental Europe, up to London. Now for FIATA, this is highly significant. Freight forwarders have always operated across modes. We do not see separate transport silos. We see the movement of goods from origin to destination. The legal architecture of digital trade must reflect the operational reality of global supply chain. Let's look at the adoption here. Some may now say, excellent, we have technology, we have digital documents, we have legal frameworks, problem solved. Unfortunately, logistics is never that simple, as we know. The next challenge is what we call adoption and adaptation. The adoption is not only technical, it is actually also legal, operational, commercial, and cultural. In my field of work, I spent over 40 years in freight forwarding. We are innovative people, but we also have one very famous sentence. We always say we have always done it in this way. When the first live digital shipment arrives, someone asks, what if the systems fail? What if the customer refuses? And what if the bank doesn't accept it? And then somebody asks, can we print one paper copy just in case? Okay. Now, these concerns are actually legitimate. Trust is not created by telling people to adopt technology. It is created through pilots, education, clear procedures, successful transaction. And awareness becomes the confidence that we seek. Confidence becomes a habit, and habit becomes adoption through adaptation. Now let's look at AI plus digital trade. We must also speak about artificial intelligence today. We know that AI can read documents, compare data, identify discrepancy, support classification, and also product disruption, detect unusual transaction, and increasingly AI agents may initiate actions across supply chain system. Today we call that agentic AI, or in common words, AI employees. Now this creates enormous opportunity, but it creates also a new trust question. Today we ask, can I trust this digital document? Tomorrow we may ask another question, can I trust the machine that created, checked, or acted upon these documents? If AI changes shipment data, who is then accountable? If an AI agent blocks a transaction, who oversight and reviews the decision? If AI systems exchange trade data automatically, how do we verify origin and integrity? The more autonomous our system becomes, the more important governance becomes. AI should enhance professional judgment. It should not create invisible decision making. Accuracy matters. Compliance matters. Accountability matters even more. Our future digital ecosystem must be intelligent, but also adoptable, auditable, explainable, and accountable. Trust must remain ahead of automation. Let's look at the ASEAN Digital Corridor. This brings me to ASEAN, and particularly Vietnam, for the matter. ASEAN has an extraordinary opportunity. Our region is dynamic, as we all know. Many of us comes from ASEAN on this floor. Trade corridors are growing. Manufacturing networks are increasingly interconnected. A product may involve material